The Nation and your friendly Neighborhood Rising co-hosts have been absolutely riveted by this saga involving Redditors on Wall Street Bets and GameStop and hedge fund managers, and exactly what it reveals about our entire rigged economy.
That's right. So joining us, as always, with some prescient and deep thoughts is the funky academic himself, Irami Osei-Frimpong. Irami, good to see you, my friend. Just lay it down on us. What do you have for us today?
Thanks. It's fascinating, isn't it? Right. So I divided this into a prologue and two acts. The prologue is that we saw civil disobedience. If the goal of civil disobedience is to exercise self-determination in a way that you should be able to do by right, only to trigger a public and ghoulish response from people who themselves deny that they are ghouls. Robinhood's brand, that they are good billionaires, not the ghoulish billionaires, gets unmasked. And so the saga takes this mask off, and now we know we're dealing with actual people who are just trying to fleece you, right? And so the two acts are Act 1, that happens before January 28th, and Act 2 is after January 28th, right? Before January 28th, the question is whether stock speculation itself is an institution of civil freedom, where people can get together and gather and put deals together and exercise what they want to do as a people, as a group that self-selects itself to do what they want to do. After January 28th, it becomes an issue of, is Robinhood a tyranny? Like, are we under their tyranny? Are they just a bunch of tyrants? And what does it mean that Robinhood exercises its power to unilaterally decide which publicly traded stocks you can trade, when you can trade them, and how, in possible collusion with other brokerage firms? Like, are we under the tyranny of a private government who gets to decide our objective world and can, when it becomes inconvenient for them, take all of that away, take away our plans, right? So they pitch themselves as democratizing power, but we're in an oligarchy, right? So when elites talk about democratizing power, that means de facto they're ceding power. And this is one reason why when you talk to elites and they talk about something like the UBI, they aren't doing it because they're trying to democratize power. They do it because they have reason to expect that the $1,000 or whatever a month is going to come right back to them and their friends as laundered through you. And if for some reason it actually democratized power, they would spec it down. And we saw that, right? So in answer to the first question, is stock trading a matter of civil freedom? You have to understand what civil society is, right? So civil society is this network of volunteer market-based interactions where we mutually accommodate each other by exchanging the burdens of risk and labor. What we're doing right now is a matter of civil freedom. I put my labor together and put together some arguments, and you guys work to build a platform and then risk your friendships and the dignity of your platform by having me on from time to time. And each of our lives and the nation is better for our risk and labor in this exchange, right? Is stock speculation like that? I don't know. We're in a capitalist system, and businesses have to raise capital in order to provide goods and services they need, and we need, right? And there is even a place in the world for shorting stocks, and shorting stocks is just betting on the downward trajectory of companies, right? Now, there isn't a ton of downward pressure on for large legacy zombie businesses that are sucking up resources and attention. So there are actually good arguments for the existence of people who bet against companies. But there's also a place in the world for people who squeeze the shorters, right? For example, I don't play video games, but I read books and I like bookstores. I met my wife in a bookstore. If someone were betting against bookstores in a way that jeopardizes the viability of bookstores, I would like the opportunity to bet against the haters in a way that not only makes money off of them, but helps bookstores figure out how to stay viable places for people like me to find meaning in their lives and find spouses, right? And yeah, I'd like to consider betting on stock speculation to be an institution of civil freedom and self-determination in that world. Now, I also suspect that there's a critical mass of Reddit GameStop folks who are similarly disposed, who actually like GameStop and quasi-resent the fact that people are betting on its failure. So I think that's legitimate. If you like going to game stores or you like going to movies and people are betting against game stores and betting against movies, then, have at them. And I support that in general, right? And until we actually have a job policy that secures meaningful employment, people are going to find risky alternatives to make money and find meaning while fighting for the institutions they find meaningful.
Very true.
And the other thing about Act One that I find a little bit disconcerting is the people talking about artificial demand, and it's pumping up artificial demand in a way that's un-American. And I don't know how to take that seriously. Demand is artificial as the goods and services they are produced for, right? I mean, some people buy Apple phones because they like the product. Other people buy Apple phones because they want to chat with an Apple phone that sends a blue bubble because they know their friends and dates and bosses will resent them if they chat with a green bubble rather than a blue bubble. Is bubble color a sign of artificial demand? Has Apple made us bubble bigots and profits off our bubble bigotry because creating bubble bigots is a lot cheaper than designing a better phone, right? So people who talk about the fundamental value of a company versus artificial demand, it's just a weak argument unless we're going to have the whole conversation. And I have a lot of words to say about that conversation because we have $1 billion real estate economy that's built around securing distance from Black people and profiting off of selling that distance from Black people to people who don't want to have to deal with the after effects of legacy racism. Right? So if we're going to have the conversation about artificial demand, I'm here for it, but I think a lot of feelings are going to get hurt. And property values going to have to talk about like the demand that creates those property values. So that's Act One. Act Two, the tyranny of Robinhood. Right? So the number of brazen elite shutdowns I've witnessed in the last year is fascinating, right? So you can compare, you can have a comparative autopsy from the way that the Democratic Party shut down Bernie Sanders and the financial community shut down the Redditors. Populism left and right got smacked down because populism requires secure institutional conditions of communications. And everybody knows, and everybody has to know that everybody else has the same information, right? Even if they don't have the courage to act on that information and be good populists, everybody has to be networked in a way that we can share information, and it has to be a public process for populism to get off the ground. And I was a union organizer for a stretch, and I've been through a few union organizing campaign, and there's definitely an analog that nobody's talking to getting someone to sign a union card and getting them to hold on to GameStop and AME stock, right? And people think that it's just about money, that people are just, going for the union for money or just holding on to the stock for money. But that's not what's going on if you've actually done the work, right? It's about self-determination. A lot of people will proudly hold the bag when AMC and GME go down, if they go down, because they were part of something and they took some a-holes down with them, right? Right? So is Robinhood the tyrant? That's the question. Are we under a tyrannical private government in Robinhood? First, you have to understand that freedom is a matter of being able to make plans and realize them. You don't understand tyranny if you don't understand freedom. So freedom, I can make plans and realize them. And if you're making plans with other people, that means the whole world needs to be and be known as stable enough so that everybody else can understand our group plan and how to realize them. And that's when not only I am free, but we are free. And freedom also isn't just a matter of choices. It's got to be a matter of being reflected in the options among which you choose. But with retail stock speculation, the content of our options was arbitrarily and unilaterally controlled by Robinhood, which is an institution that's against our interests. I'm actually okay with Robinhood selling our information to Citadel. I think that can be factored into the stability of the relationship we have with Robinhood. What I'm not okay with is them unilaterally deciding halfway through my plan to bilk some hedge funds that all of a sudden the world through which we created is no longer viable because it's inconvenient for their friends, right? Their brand is democratizing power, but it's peak liberalism to assume that once you democratize power, people aren't going to organize when that's actually the only way to exercise real power in the game. Yep. Businesses will form chambers of commerce. What? Excuse me? Yeah, businesses will form chambers of commerce because that's irrational moves, and then be shocked when the workers try to form labor unions, right? So elites will democratize power as long as they think that the rubes, us, are too feckless or stupid or disorganized to understand how to use it to actually wrestle real power from the elites, right? So if you think the retail investors are going to be cute, cuddly, and individual, kind of like the cast of Friends, but this is America. And, you democratize power, you're going to get QAnon, right? Like and political and civil maturity means in a real democracy understands that that's perfectly appropriate. And, if democratizing power isn't just a brand strategy like it was for, I believe, Elizabeth Warren, other people think she's legitimate, and what it was for Robinhood, then it's going to include the maturity to understand that the people are going to organize to take some real power back. And that might be power back from you.
You have to be prepared for the fact, if you're actually democratizing power, you have to be prepared for the fact that you're not always going to like what you're going to get. And what we saw with Robinhood is that they weren't actually committed to that principle because they kept in there the fail-safe so that when things went in a direction they weren't comfortable with, they could control the outcome ultimately. So your democratized power was fake ultimately in the end, which is something that we see a lot. Irami, so great to have your thoughts on this as always.
I do have a quick question for you guys.
We can't. We gotta go. We gotta go.
Next time. Another time.
All right. Yeah.
Have a good one. And we'll have more rising for you after this.